you've seen this partnership, especially tonight with Ted, kind of grow with you on the right side. Just how has that kind of grown for you over the past couple of weeks, and how did it kind of come to a head? You combined on a few dangerous chances tonight.
Yeah, I talked with Ted after the game. It's a joy playing with him. He's such a good player. He makes it easy for me as a fullback, because I know what he's going to do. He makes it easy for me to predict the game, and when I make the game predictable, it allows us to create chances like that. So I really enjoy playing with him. I know this is weird, but he reminds me of Jordan Morris a little bit. When I play with him on national team, I'll always say Jordan's one of the best wingers I've ever played with because we just had a connection where I knew what he was going to do prior to getting the ball. And Ted just makes the game so easy. He makes it so predictable for us. And, as dangerous of a player as he is, he's never afraid to get the ball. As soon as we win it, he's on the transition, running at players, 1v1, even 1v2, attracting players to the ball. So, he's such a special player, and we're so happy to have him. And, I'm really happy to have him on my side.
And part of that, too, is just how he plays in tight spaces, just how much of that is an added benefit, especially with guys that I guess maybe don't have that same quality.
Yeah, he's, like I said, he's very dangerous. Anytime we can get him on the ball, I'm always going to play him. He's one of those players that can always make the difference for us. So, we're so happy to have him, and, obviously he's going to keep growing and keep improving as we all are. So, I'm super proud and super happy to have him on the team.
Reggie, how do you assess tonight's performance offensively? Lots of shots, almost 19 on MLS, but, a lot of block shots and a lot of ones where Austin was able to deal with it calmly.
Yeah, it's a frustrating night because I think, offensively we got in the right spots, we created the right chances, just literally a game of inches. We just didn't put the ball in the back of the net. At the end of the day, they punished us with a few transition moments, and, that's the game. Austin's a very heavy transition team, a very possession-oriented team too, but, we obviously nicked the ball off them, got a couple of chances. And Chris was obviously very fond of that heading into this weekend, but, it's just a frustrating night because, our offense has produced so much. We have such talented players, Georgie, Rafa, all those guys. They've done their job, and, we're really frustrated, obviously, not to get the 3 points, not put the ball in the back of the net, but also we got to be better defensively as well. So I think there's faults all around, but, I think we just got to be better.
Disappointed maybe as Sharpie and, giving up the goal in the corner, maybe not creating enough chances on offensive corners.
Yeah, it's something we've been really focusing on. Georgie's delivery is great. We're getting our head on the end of them. The ball's just not going in. This is just one of those nights where it's just things were just not falling our way. We were in all the right positions. It's just that last pass, that final ball is just inches off. And these weeks happen. We had such a great training week. Chris will tell you, I don't know if you already talked to him. He said, this week was incredible in training. We were competing. It's hard for him to decide the lineup. That's what you want. Unfortunately, it just didn't come to fruition on the weekend. So hopefully we'll be back at it.
Reggie, 2 up, 2 down. You've got a big test in Orlando coming here Saturday, and then the RSL beating LA Galaxy the week after that. What was the talk in the locker room for the team to get right for the next stand-up home games?
Yeah, Chris's message was just as uplifting as our other losses. He said, you guys are trying to do the right things. That's all I can ask for as a coach. All we can do is keep working, keep trying, and the right things will happen. I just really hope for a wave of consistency, with this team. We're such a talented group, like I said, and, obviously it's also a very young group. So, it's just getting that consistency in it, and I think, once that happens, man, this team's going to be so dangerous, but it's just about doing all the extra work that the guys are doing, and we're so committed. It's just didn't fall our way tonight, and that's ultimately the story of tonight, so, yeah.
Reggie, you said you feel like the defense could be a little bit better. From the outside looking in, you face a lot of teams with a lot of attack have not given up really that many goals. What is it that you think the defense might be missing to help maybe prevent some of those?
Yeah, I think Chris says it best. He says we have a really prideful group of defenders. Guys even like tonight where maybe we had 19 shots. I don't even know how many they had. I can't even recall. They had a couple of chances. Nico obviously comes up big, but defensively, I think the group's really solid. I hate giving up goals. It makes me angry. So I have to say that. So I really think this group is talented. We always trust Nico back there, back four, anyone to step in. I think we have such talented defenders. It's just getting all the right things at the right time. So, like I said, I think consistency is going to be the biggest thing as the season goes on. With the Leagues Cup and all these things coming up, it's going to be about how consistent can we be week to week, day to day. That's going to be the most important thing in this team.
Sounds like you're going to have to rely on Nico for at least a few more weeks. Just what has been the biggest point of emphasis as far as his improvement since his debut?
We always knew Nico was ready. We always knew he was going to step up to the plate if he got the chance, and that's the game. You get the chance, and he ultimately takes advantage. So, we're obviously super happy to have Nico back there. I can always trust him. Obviously we'll miss Zach, and Zach's a great keeper. But this is the game. Guys step up and they show that they can also do the same job. So, I'm really proud of him to step into that light, and I think we'll feel very confident no matter who's back there in the future. So. Yeah.
Reggie, Sam Bassett has gotten a couple of starts recently, not finishing that crossbar shot against Portland notwithstanding. How do you rate how he's come into the team and looked okay?
Yeah, Sam's done a really good job. I think winger isn't his most natural position, but I think him coming inside, he's looked pretty dangerous. I think getting these running games has been really good for him, really important for him, and obviously for his development, I think it's going to be really, really important going forward. He's not the same player as his brother. They play very differently. So I enjoy having him on the pitch. I think he's a very good player. He's got a lot to show, a lot to prove. So I think he's really grown into the game over these past couple games. I think there's definitely more to come from him.